All right, good morning. It is December 16th, 2024 at 9:16 a.m. We are meeting with IAFF for a bargaining session. My name is Nikki Powell, I'm the HR Director.
Adam Harrison, Fire Chief.
Wes Marino, County Administrator.
Eric Gilmore, Public Safety.
Janice Floyd, Deputy Director HR.
Amy Bowers, County Admin.
David Carvioso, Local 4131.
Josh Hunter, 4131.
Justin Markham, 4131.
Nick Grady at 4131.
All right, I'm going to do a quick recap of what I've got. Yeah, I'll do it after I do the recap. I show that we should have a TA on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 9, 11, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. So I'll pass those across to be signed today.
All right. 19, yeah, there's a TA. We talked about making that an MOU and effective immediately. Is that what we're looking at on that one, or is it just TA?
Right now it's just a TA. So then I also have, to pass across the table, I have an MOU to extend the promotion list.
I'll turn it back when I do that.
So I've got that as well. And then for discussion, I have Article 8, Article 10, Article 12, Article 13, Article 16, Article 20. And I'm gonna pass these across, I'm gonna turn that up so we can hear Kristen better, and then we can discuss those open articles. You want to caucus and look at those, or you want to go ahead and discuss and come back to them?
The only thing I'm looking at is the MOU real quick, just reading over it. Um, Obviously, the intent of this is to continue to expire the current list until the testings, but we got the lieutenant and captain's the only one we've got scheduled, correct? So the battalion, what is the plan for the battalion list?
So, yeah, I'll speak up. The intent for the battalion chief list is, so let me back up. You understand the intent for the captains and lieutenants? So you're good on those, it's just a BC, okay. So the intent on the BC is to restructure when it's being done. So we're trying to financially work it out where every year we're doing a test instead of doing all three of them in 1 year. Doing lieutenants and captains 1 year, battalion chief the next, lieutenants and captains, battalion chief, so on and so forth, instead of trying to do all three of them. We looked at this particular time, waiting till October. We currently have no BC positions available. There's a current list that's there. This would be that 1 year transition period where we can start rotating as we spoke before. So the intent here would be the BC list would be holding over until October 1 when we go out for bid in October 1, and then have that BC list sometime in hopefully the first quarter of that year.
Is there any way to capture that into that language right there real quick?
I think, check your, the intent of the MOU is to get it to the board like January 9th, but your contract is where we identify switching it to every other year. So the contract would follow the MOU, and then that would be addressed in the contract.
Okay, we just don't want an indefinite list, that's the thing, right?
Right.
And by that, technically it could be indefinite, and that's what, obviously,
Well,
the
and then
captain
the
and
intent is
lieutenants.
to follow that up with a contract that I think you have, no, we have 13 still to discuss, but
Yeah.
in the promotional procedures, we address the every other year piece. So once that, this is just to keep it open until you have this piece that would address your.
So there's no desire to change from or shift to a process where we're not testing unless there's a vacancy, more or less. We're just resetting the schedule. Is your.
Would you like to go that? Is that what you're
No,
asking?
no, not at all.
Okay, no, that was not the
No,
intent.
It is literally just to offset the testing of.
That was
lieutenant
not the
captain
intent,
and
no.
the captain.
The intent was to capture the current list, because there's vacancies, and trying to capture those and fill them appropriately. In the BC list, there is no vacancies, and this would be able to, the first start of that, to transition it into that cycle.
We'll caucus. We'll take this to caucus and bring it back.
Sure.
But we'll kind of go through everything then with the
Yeah.
caucus one time.
Okay.
So,
Article 8, I think what we had proposed and what was just still on the table was 803, number 4, was 5 and 24. You guys countered with 7 and 24, and I think Chief
Yeah.
Harrison wanted to counter with 6 and 24.
Yeah, I was trying to meet you guys in the middle. Obviously, I think through many different discussions, you know my intent in this article and what I'm trying to capture. I'd be more than happy to share it with you again if necessary. But I would counter with, again, as Nikki said, I tried to do 5 and 24. You came back with 7 and 24, and I'm trying to meet you in the middle. It's 6 and 24.
all right.
See, just for clarification, it seemed like when we discussed this before, your concern was more about really about the 12, because people that legitimately use the league throughout the year are reaching well beyond 5. They're 7+, things like that. And it was more so about the time frame, the allowable time frame to call out. So I guess, I don't think there's a dispute there as far as going to the 24. So is the 12 really, or I'm sorry, the 7 really a concern when, from what you've been able to see in the metrics there, people that are abusing it are far exceeding the 7 anyway? Would there really be a need to change that?
It's really to hold the intent. By all means, we understand that people have scheduled sick leave. We've discussed this a couple times, and we understand that that's going to happen. We all have those where it just happens to be the doctor's office only has an availability on the day that we're working. So the intent is, if you're going to, but you would typically know that several days, if not weeks or months in advance, depending on which doctor you're seeing. So in those circumstances, no. What we're trying to capture here is those individuals that are waiting less than 24 hours. I think 24 hours is plenty of time if you're truly sick. If you woke up that morning and you got sick overnight for some reason, that should happen fairly infrequently. It shouldn't be more than several times a year. We're trying to capture the intent is to hold those people accountable that are calling in. I'm just going to be honest with you straight up. If all the annual leave is taken for that day and then they're bumping out sick 12 hours beforehand, it forces a schedule it's already hard on the schedule when we have 10 people off and trying to manage that with the current amount of people we have. And when we have additional people bumping out sick for whatever reason, waking up early that morning, it compresses that problem even more, which goes potentially, which we haven't, and I'm very proud to say that we haven't gone to mandatory overtime, but I'm scared that we'll go down that intent by allowing those people to do it. This is just a way to capture that up front so they realize that there's a hardship not only to us managing the schedule, but to you guys as well by having to force that staff. So that's the intent here.
And that should be
The only
what you
reason I asked
got
is,
last time. If you need another copy, I could get you updated copies, but
yeah, like I said, I think the question was about, we agree and understand where you're coming from on the 24-hour range, that call-out period. Don't think that's unfair. We were looking to where our meet in the middle was to stay at the 7, go to the 24, rather than reduce that number of overall days. That's where we were at. And I think that's supported by the fact that hitting that 7 as that marker, you know,
Sure.
rather than reducing.
I'll tell you what, let me discuss it with staff when you caucus to read the MOU, and I'll come back with an answer on it.
Article 10, you guys had just asked me for a cost out, and so if each person uses the 72 hours in the intent that it was meant to be used, and I think we discussed that a little bit last time, is we're not holding our hand anymore. Like if you say you want to use it, it doesn't benefit you, we're letting you use it and we're marking it out. But if they use it in the intent, it was meant to be used, it's about 120,000.
So you're saying people are misusing it and losing out on it because they're using it wrong?
Yes. And we have repeatedly held their hand until a couple months ago, and we said, you know what, you use it, you want to use it, we're marking you as using it.
Can you give an example of that, or how it would be misused?
Well, we did address in adding it as 12-hour increments, and we thought that would help the situation. But basically, when they,
Someone burning like, say, 10 hours of leave and then burning 12 of the, or 24 of the Fugazi, is that?
yeah, it's kind of, and Diane will bring them to my attention on a pretty regular basis, and I said, you know what, we're done hand-holding, send it out. We did some supervisor training, we talked about it, and they said, if you want to handhold, otherwise, when they say they want to use it, just mark them down as having used it. They'll use it in their short week. So that's what I mean. Oh, we see a lot of use in the short week, doesn't benefit you at all.
And they're not getting additional pay from that?
No, because you're in your short week. So I told Diana, no more hand holding, this is a couple months back, no more hand holding, we're just marking it as is. So we had talked about some different things we could do with that. And I mean, we tried. It was a lot more management of it than it should be. So if you say you're using it, we mark you as having used it. So again, if they use it with the full intent it was meant to be used for, that's about 120,000. And I think you guys wanted that to discuss for out of class pay possibly, but that's what you wanted from me. 13, promotional procedures. You guys were gonna have some labor management sessions.
Yeah, I think, keep running through what you got, and then we'll kind of.
I don't have anything on that because
Yeah,
I
no,
know
we'll
what
come back
y'all
to
were gonna
that.
talk.
Okay, well, I mean, we definitely talked, and again, it goes to, you know, what you guys brought last time was kind of a mixture of that restructure program, and I don't know if that's something we maybe look at. You know, we're coming in, getting ready to go to the budget cycle again, you know, we're gonna start those initial meetings and everything else. Is that something that would potentially be on the table? We could talk about doing restructure and get ready for October 1 appropriately like we should be doing. Or is that just, hey, completely off right now? That would be the only thing that affects that. We can move forward with the current MOU, obviously with the intent of we're testing BCs October 1 of 26, or 25, sorry, 25. You know, it's a new process with that in-basket that we're doing. We'll see how it works out in this next testing process, but I think we've got a lot of the kinks that we've had in the past worked out with it. Just want to make sure we maintain that October 1, 25 for BCs. Now, if we're talking restructure, that kind of changes that whole arc. So,
It would.
right.
It would. And just to be clear, your intent when you say restructure is adding driver positions?
Yes.
Okay.
So adding that driver's position, we had it as, you know, they moved basically the promotal rank to lieutenant, kind of the mayor and what the city does is their drivers are lieutenants, their company officers are captains, which are our current lieutenants. So our company officers will move to that captain rank, then driver promoted to that lieutenant rank, but that would kind of, that'll change the whole, like a wage scale, that'll change a lot of different things.
Sure. I think we discussed that earlier. That's something I'm in favor of, is trying to find those driver positions. I believe we discussed it before in one of these meetings where it makes it a whole lot easier to hold somebody accountable for that rig instead of them bouncing back and forth and stuff. So that is something that I would like to see in the future. It's about finding the appropriate funds to manage that.
Is that something in the, you know, we can get going right now, or is that something that's gonna take some more time and we just kind of hey, we're gonna land right here, right now, and then address it in maybe next year's opener, or do we wanna go ahead and address it now?
That's your article.
Yeah, I mean, well, it relates to funding. So
Right.
while it's my article, and I would say, yes, that is an intent, is to try and get us there, it's gonna have to go to Stefan and budget and everybody else to see, because obviously it's gonna be a pay increase. And we understand that, it'll be promotable positions and stuff. We wanna get there, but I can't answer from Stefan's aspect.
So essentially, right now, we sit at the MOU as it currently stands, with the understanding we're testing October 125 for BCs.
Correct.
I guess the next one was 16, Jeff, you know?
16, I think, was the 500 for the uniforms.
Yeah, that was the only,
That was
y'all
the
got
only
that changed.
thing. I do have a meeting Wednesday on light duty with legal just to address one of these statements in here. So I want to clean that up before we bring it
Which
back.
statement?
1603D, but if there's nothing that I need to bring back, it'll be as it stands, but I have to discuss with them first.
What is that in reference to? The only thing we talked
I have a
about.
light duty situation across the county that I'll be discussing with legal on Wednesday, and if I have to bring it back to the table, we'll bring it back to the table.
Okay. All right.
Article 20 is out of classification pay.
Yes.
I think the last thing that was presented was the $50 per shift.
Yes, and then you guys have presented at $50 on a 24-hour shift. Our concern was we had that 9-hour company in Century. Guys were getting shifted up there off 24 to go cover that. But by the language, they weren't going to get that additional 50. When they're covering a shift up there, and they're being shifted out and using their own money and gas and everything to go up there. So we want to capture that it was, whether it's a 9-hour crew or a 24-hour crew, and then maintain that 14-day language. If you're in a position longer than 14 days, then you should be bumped to that, reclassified to that classification.
We can discuss it in caucus. I think I got the,
We'll try and clean that one up.
I think I got your intent. And then I think the last one is wages.
We have a proposal for wages. Yes. So, with wages, in the article, we just got highlighted there because we changed the appendix to reflect the pay scale. So the pay scales are attached to this, but in the appendix, so basically, I'll just kind of read through it for the record. Upon ratification, contract pay for all incumbents in each bargaining class will be placed in the pay chart at step, year and column based upon the current time, grade, and rank. Upon placing incumbent in the proper step results in a decrease in pay, that incumbent should be placed at the step guarantees at least 15%. That step is the final step in the grade and is less than 15% increase, the incumbent shall receive a rate of 15%. So basically it captures if there's ever an instance that somebody right now is going to be at the max of the scale. I don't think that's going to be the case, but just in case that instance, they're guaranteed 15% and there will be an outlier either. And that will go away through attrition or through promotion. The next one is just kind of our Me Too that's stated there. But we did add in that any wage increase would be applied to the scale to include starting wages. So it is a true COLA, and that's where we got in trouble in the past 10 or 12 years. We were doing these across-the-board raises or COLAs, but they never applied to our starting wages. and we had got way behind. So this fixes that. So any cross-board wage is now a true COLA in our rates to include starting rates, keep up with it. And then any employee that's outside the max scale implemented shall receive the same wage increase, just to capture if somebody is in that outlier. And then a 5% increase will be applied to the pay charts to include starting wages on October 1 of 25 and October 1 of 26. This is in addition to any increase given in Section 2 of Appendix D. And then there's an example below that, how it should be implemented. So a firefighter with 2.4 years of service will be placed in step 2. And then upon that firefighter's 3-year anniversary, they'll move to step 3. And then another example for captain in the same manner. And those charts are supplied there behind. So also,
Did you guys cost this out at all?
I believe it was roughly $3 million, I believe, to implement.
3 million before any additions for years of service.
That's what I was told it was costed at, was $3 million, so.
That's 3 million before any
Before any.
addition for years of service.
Okay, so it'd be obviously a little bit more than that. Also, we added a section 12.09 to the wages in Article 12 for promotional ratification, reclassification pay. This is essentially capturing the county's language, but putting it to where we can find it. Guys have a hard time finding the appropriate language. They typically go to this, so it's bringing that in there. We did say the employee salary increase at least 15% or to the minimum salary new pay grade. Again, that's just the same language up until all employees are eligible for promotion as long as they meet requirements stated in Article 13 of promotional procedures. The county's policy just says that all employees are eligible for promotion. The reclassification is not established in the anniversary date or probation period except for reclassification lasts longer than a period of 1 year. If the reclassification lasts longer than a period of 1 year, it becomes permanent. A permanent promotion with the anniversary date becoming the initial date of reclassification. So we ran into the instance a couple times to where from temporary or reclassification's been for a significant amount of time. If it's there for a year, they should be reclassified and promoted. They've been doing that job for a year without any kind of instances or anything like that. They're deserving of that position at that point. That's what that captures there. Part C, that's straight county language. And then 12.10 is temporary promotion. Any temporary promotion we treat as a reclassification, see Article 12.10.09. So no temporary promotions, it's a reclassification to that pay grade. If it hits that year mark, then it becomes a permanent promotion. And that's what the intent of all that is. It's just essentially capturing that county language, putting where everybody can get it, and cover all bases that we ran into.
Nope. No questions.
Alright, we'll stop the recording for the caucus. You'll let us know if you get ready, and then we have some things to discuss and you'll have some things to discuss.
Okay.
Alright, recorder's on.
So, we got all these signed for you. The only ones, sorry, the ones we withheld were the MOU and holidays. So we'll talk further on those. So start with the MOU. And just to clarify, Chief, we are open currently for lieutenants and captains to test in this current open period, correct?
Correct, yep.
So lieutenants and captains are
Yep,
available to
those are
apply.
out for bid already.
The captain's list will be established at the end of that testing procedure and then be valid for 2 years as our current contract. So it's not a forever list.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, with the BCs, the only thing we want to put in there is some definites, right? Yes, we extend this list till September 30th of 2025, which is forcing that testing procedure, right? And we want to test no later than October 17th. I think we've been very understanding. We're not filing grievances, and we're coming up on a year past this
No, understood.
procedure.
Yep.
So that forces the process to be started in June-ish timeframe. You know, open the application, get the RFP and everything out.
Right,
But we're
right.
moving that fiscal year, right? Because you're not paid
Yes.
out to the next fiscal year.
As long as I'm okay with that, as long as the language states we're moving on with the process. Because as we all know, I can't test in October, because I have to go out for bid, all that other stuff,
So it has, your bid has to be in October, like the
It has to
fiscal
go in the
year.
next fiscal year. So October 1 hits, then we have to go to an RFP. Place the RFP, it has to go out for a certain amount of time. That's done by purchasing. Then that's what, so as long as you're saying the process starts the beginning of that fiscal year, there's probably no way to be able to test exactly.
So you're asking us realistically to test January of 26 is what you're asking?
I'm hoping it would be before then.
Well, I mean,
I
the
think
situation we're in
honestly, I'm
now.
gonna say that's probably realistic, just
Well,
because of
potentially,
where
Correct,
we
so
are right
you're
now.
asking us to extend that list for almost a whole nother list. I mean, that's a year and a half from now, or a year from now.
It
Or
just
a year and
depends
a
on
couple
how long
months.
those RFP processes take, and we can't speak for purchasing.
Yeah,
and I don't
I
wanna
get it
step on
takes a long
Chief's
time,
toes.
that's
Give me
why.
1 second, give me 1 second. Sorry, guys, we're trying to work around how to do that. So the issue becomes, and I was giving it some thought, was to try and go for RFP this fiscal year. But the problem is I encumber it on this year's budget. And so that was the issue, is that even if I went now and I tried to roll that PO over in the next year, it comes out of this year's budget.
Why
And the-
does the request for purchase come out of this year's budget? Why can't we start the process and then, okay, you can't open the bid up, how long does the bid process take? Can you put stipulation, it's gonna be 30
Now, I
days?
can go out for bid, I just can't open the PO to test. You see what I'm saying? Because I have to write a PO for that company to test.
But that's not gonna be done until the day of the test, correct? We can still go through our application process, our study time, and say, this is the date we're gonna be testing for. You're not cutting that PO until they physically administer the exam, correct? You're not.
No, the PO's cut before then.
So when is the PO cut, at the end of the RFP? When they say, hey, we take this and we accept your offer, you cut the check right then and there?
Technically, the RFP goes out, then when you do your sit down for the solicitation, you open the bids and you say, okay, this is the company we're taking, then it goes to purchasing and they open up a PO.
Okay, so, but don't you control those dates, or don't they control the times, like, it's 30 days for this, or 60 days for this? So
I
you-
have to contact purchasing, I don't wanna promise you anything, I'm just thinking of
Well,
all
I'm just
those.
getting at is like-
The intent is to get it as quickly up front into that next fiscal year. Yes, that is the intent. How all that works out, I'd have to be 100%.
You just stipulate that the list expires on September 30th.
Yeah, can we stipulate that the list expires on September 30th? Because like you said, there's no
Yeah.
positions available, and there won't be a
And
position
then
available to
should-
at least October 1. So you
Right.
have to have that test prior to
Process
vote.
takes, if you end up testing for the battalions in January because of purchasing dragging their feet or whatever other hurdles may arise, it's still, it kinda is what it is.
We're
that,
trying
but
to work
the
at the
list
same
expires.
time.
No, so I'm
We-
thinking of.
Adam, we can run it so that we have the person that we want to pick in October, and we can take it to the board in October. I can work with that and see on that.
So, I mean, that's fine, we say October, November on the definite testing day. That way it gives a
I don't
little
know
bit
the
less.
testing day, I'm just saying I can run it so that we can select
The vendor.
the
Yeah,
vendor
okay.
in an October board meeting or November, depending on how.
And we
the-
can start the process prior to that, get the applications done, the 60-day study.
Not if they're running it, you can't. If the vendor is running the whole process, no, you can't do it until they're on board, which will be at the earliest October.
But don't you need, this is a good conversation to have, don't you need to have an idea, if you're putting a bid out, have an idea of people are testing, wouldn't that affect the bid?
So what we did this time was, we asked, because we ran into that same challenge.
Sure.
We asked them to spell it out, like, give me a cost out
Per
for 1 to
person.
10 people, 10 to 20, those are examples.
Sure.
And so that way, because we didn't know, like this exact process we're going through right now, we have no idea. Currently, we still don't know until the vetting process goes through what the number is. But we're under the gun trying to get it pushed through as quickly as possible. So we controlled that bid and said, give me it by a numeric amount of people.
Okay, so you're amenable to saying, hey, September 30th, 25, that list is dead. So it forces another testing process, because you're gonna have more people coming eligible to test that want to test and promote. And the further if you don't have a definitive date, that list just keeps going and going, and they don't have the opportunity to test and promote. That's what we want to avoid. And to give people.
So, and just for clarification, so if you say, okay, it expires that day, which I'm hearing, if something comes around in October and there's positions available, how are you gonna put acting person in there? Are you not gonna do anything until the testing is completed? How would you wanna do that?
I think you're locked down until
You're locked down until the
process is
test.
complete. We would like to avoid what's currently happening where there are people who are making overtime, they're acting out of classification, they're getting paid for it, they're not on the promotable list.
Fair enough.
And
Okay.
that's absolutely the union understanding the complications that what took place and what happened, trying to work the situation, but in reality, a lot of what's going on is dead wrong. Should absolutely not be happening. We should have started the process months and months ago. You know,
Understood.
it's-
Nope, so we'll do that and the list will be locked. If we get positions that come up in the next fiscal year, they'll just sit vacant until we have that list that's.
But I think what you're saying, if you have the ability to
Yeah, we can
help that
start the
happen
process
October
in
1. Yeah.
July, June, July, and it's ready to award in October. Using his step, however many people they're gonna test.
And that's why I was asking, if you open the application, you would know exactly how many you had, but if you can't open the application until you have the testing.
I don't know if they are the ones who run the application process, or we
I
run
believe it has to
it.
go through
We
HR.
do.
Then
HR.
you give it to them?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that
And
we
you
can
can
start
run it
the
whenever
process.
Janice wants to.
Yeah, so we can theoretically start the process, we just have to guarantee at least 60 days, and if there's a problem with that RFP coming in, they get an extension on the study period, which is in favor of the applicants, right? But it guarantees that test is happening as fast as possible.
Nope, that's fine. And just so you realize too, is that when that happens, we're also pushing earlier. In other words, if you want to do it, if it happens in October 1, we're gonna have to do just like we did on this go round and come up and say, hey,
Well, you have a little latitude within the contract, because until the list expired is, 2 years, or is, promoted completely off, you have 6 months from that time frame to test again, right? That's what the contract states. So you have a little latitude to push it more into that fiscal year than the next go around.
right, no, I'm sorry, we agree with that. I don't have a problem. I think, Janice, we can do the same thing that we did last time and just put the application process out, just like we did.
Yeah.
But no, when we do that, whatever we push it back to, that's when the qualification has to be had by that date.
Oh, yeah. So the
Yeah, that's
application
the intent.
day.
Is that
Sorry,
nobody's
yes,
gonna have
yeah,
any
yeah.
room to say like, oh, I got another 3 months.
Right, yeah.
It's
yeah.
whatever that application process goes out, that's.
Just
when-
like we
that's
did
when
this,
that-
this go around.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's-
yeah, no, 100% agree with
Okay,
that.
fair enough.
So like, when you're applying, by the close of that period, you gotta have all the qualifications.
Yep.
Then that starts, the week of verification to give that opportunity for people to correct anything. Here's the list, this is everybody qualified to take the test, starts your study period. Like I said, I don't think there's a problem with extending the study period. That only benefits the applicants at that point in time if there's an issue with that RFP. So, but like I said, it kills all the qualms with it.
Fair enough.
Right.
So, have you guys determined as far as the current process, has a vendor been selected yet?
The RFP should be completed here very shortly. I think it has to go out for 30 days.
And then can you elaborate, because you were assessing the ability to either do a full outside assessment center versus you
Yeah, so that's
had to navigate
That's
that.
kind of the quagmire we're in, right? So those, I anticipate those being very different in price, extremely different. Until we get those back from the vendors and that closing date closes, we won't know what that figure is. I'll just be honest with you up front, if they're just gonna do, the vending's just gonna do the 100-question test, I suspect it will be significantly less than them doing the entire process. And so that would be the 100-question test plus the 3 scenarios, or the scenario-driven aspect of it, excuse me. So then we're gonna have to look at funding, we have to look at availability, a lot of things work after we get those prices back. Is the funding available to do that? If it is, that would be my intent. If the funding's not available, then we have to go look at the 100-question test and then how much staff we have available to initiate that secondary process. So until we have those numbers back, which should be here fairly soon, I couldn't tell you which. My intent I would love to have it done completely outsourced, just to be honest with you. It takes everybody off the hook.
And that is hopefully going forward, now, can't get it this process, going forward, that is going, you be working towards that.
Yes, because
budgeting
it'll
for
help
that.
us start, exactly.
Okay. All right. So that's that, if we can get the language on that one, list expires on September 30th, 2025.
Are you gonna do language, or are they gonna do language? Because I'm not sure I understand what you guys want on that.
Yeah, it's just gonna change the date to say it ends on such and such day.
It was
You
just
just
give
give
them
them
an
end date.
An
Yeah.
end date on the
Right.
BC.
On the
So
BC.
essentially, it
The list
says,
will expire on
The battalion,
the battalion.
so where you
chief's-
say, the promotion for rank battalion chief certified July 18, 2022 shall remain in effect until strike all the rest of that out, and then add September 30th, 2025.
Good.
Good on that one. So, know y'all had some things to talk about, like age and everything.
Yeah.
Article 8, I think we're good
Yeah.
with 7 and 24.
We'll agree with 7 and
So we'll get
24.
Okay.
that drafted back up.
Perfect. Sign that, 724, we're going to sign.
And I can email that after I get that, since we've discussed it today. I won't have that today. I'll
Actually,
have to
sign.
get, yeah, Kristen to draft it with the signature line.
Okay.
And we'll send it over to you guys and get it back. Article 10, I think was just with you guys because you just wanted the amount. I didn't have any other.
So, there's, you guys are hard on that 12 hours, there's no keeping it at hour for hour, because like I said, you got guys that, like I said, use 5 hours
The
sick
hour
leave.
for hour really doesn't.
Well, so the example
Either.
would be, you know, and the guys that brought it up to us is listen, there's days I gotta take a doctor's appointment, I take 5 or 6 hours off on their long cycle. Well, they're losing that half time, that's what that leave is there for. But by the 12 hours, they can't protect their hours there, so they're losing. Because they can't use it in a 6 hour increment, or they have to take the full 12 and they're having to use more of that time just to get the 6 hours. So that's why the hour is important, is for that. But if they use it wrong, I agree with you. Well, then you just strike it out. But to punish guys that are using it appropriately, that's kind of where we're at with it. So,
What's your team name?
I think the original intent when we went to the whole Tinkerbell time for guys who leave, whatever you want to call it, was to be an hour for hour replacement. That was certainly the understanding on this side of the table back then.
Yeah,
And
I think it
when
still
we
is.
shifted to transition to UKG and all that, I think we
it's-
ran into some challenges,
It's
technical
truly a
challenges.
management nightmare, is what it is.
Mhm.
And it was his staff that brought it up, so I think we will have to let him go back and talk to his staff and before we can agree to that.
okay, so you just want to table that one for now?
Yeah,
Yeah, we
'cause-
can table that and he can go back and see, you know, how much time they're spending managing that.
Sure.
And they were spending a lot more up until recently when I said, quit hand holding, so
No, I
that may,
agree, 100%.
you know,
Yeah, and if we need to, we can have some labor management, and it gives us an opportunity to take back our guys.
But the employees, they have to be responsible, they have to have an understanding, absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, if we'll table that, we certainly understand and understand and see the intent. So I don't think there'll be an issue trying to find a common ground there.
Promotional procedures,
Like I said, we got the BC with this one, intent for the next testing on it. We're going to be keeping that MOU we signed back with in May it was, continue with that. So,
and the 1301, I'm struggling to know, was it 5 or 4 years that we agreed to?
It's always been 5 years since 7 or 8 years ago, I believe it was.
I just wanna make sure we're
That
clear when
only-
we send you the final one, because,
The 4 years was
Looks like they're both
the
crossed
restructure
out.
part for driving, so.
alright, we're good there then. Is that the only question on 13?
That wraps up 13, I believe, correct?
16, if there's no change other than the 500, I'll just email it to you guys.
Okay.
If I end up having to change, obviously we'll have to bring that back to the table.
Sure.
What would you have to change here,
The
That's the one
section-
I have a
the-
1603, I have a countywide issue I gotta discuss, and since it's a HIPAA thing, I wanna just make sure before I send this across the table and have to change it. Yeah. Article 220,
He's asking one thing real fast on the 16, I apologize. That 500, obviously that was the intent was to go through this fiscal year. We're still not open for uniforms, like, that's a big deal. We're understanding what kind of what's going on, but here we are almost a quarter through the year, and it takes a while to get our uniforms, and we ran into a situation where the vendor didn't have things or come back order, never showed up by the end of the fiscal year, and guys lost their ability to use their uniform money. Is that gonna be open, like, anytime soon? Because we damn sure file agreements on it if we need to.
So I think the intent here is, and I understand your frustration, I have the same. What I'm gonna do is open up a PO with Galls. So I know there's members out there that currently don't have any uniforms. And so the intent is never to not supply you guys with uniforms. We understand the gravitude of that. So we're gonna open up a PO right now just to make sure that those people have uniforms.
Okay.
My hopes are is that here in the near future that they'll be wrapping up that solicitation so we can open it up fully.
Okay, so
I'm checking
yeah. So it's
So
still the
Chief,
1 or
you're-
2 year thing is.
Yeah, remember we talked about before you wanted the structure to where the 1 year, 2 year guys, basically you're buying the uniforms for them, right? So they get the appropriate stuff.
Correct.
So I would imagine that smaller PO would go in that route because these are new guys that don't have anything, right?
Right.
With that in mind, you can go on Galls right now and it'll show the stuff, it's just not open or accessible, but it shows the allotment. The allotment is still at the old amount. So that's one thing that we want to make sure gets adjusted to the appropriate
So
amount.
that-
And if we're trying, what I'm saying is if we're trying to capture and say, we're gonna focus on those new guys that follow that 1 or 2 year thing, we should also be following the increase in the allotment as well.
Yeah, so the 1 to 2 year guys, that doesn't change on the allotment because it is what we give them. So it is whatever we have to purchase, whatever that comes out to be that particular year.
That doesn't come from that PO that you're trying to establish?
Yeah, it comes out of the PO, that's what I'm saying. But that
We have a buttload of 1 to 2 year guys, so I imagine it's gonna chew up that PO
Probably.
pretty quick, if not
Yes.
eliminate it.
the intent would be to be the people, if you're here the second year and you already got your first round purchase, the intent for that numeric amount on the PO that we're gonna have is to get those people that do not have uniforms at all.
So you're factoring in those guys, you know that's a hard number, this is what we're getting, and then adding more in to say, hey, we're trying to get it started until the rest of the process
Yes,
figures out.
so the intent is to get uniforms to people that don't have them right now. That is up front. That is number one priority. So how do we get them? That's how we're gonna do it, is by opening a PO right now, so that we can get uniforms to the individuals that don't have it. Now, as far as changing it to 500, that would take an MOU, because currently it's at 425.
I'm opposed to it.
I thought we proposed that here. Is that what you said? Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was proposed in the past, yeah.
We're gonna finish just finish out the contract.
Just accept the tuition to the dollar amount.
Yeah, so it's not
It
Just
right.
need
was
to
where it
know.
stands until we get everything
Wasn't it the previous session where y'all came back, like we agreed on all that stuff verbally and you came back, but for whatever reason it said 425, we're like, hey, this is
Instead
not
of
what we agreed
$500.
on.
done. Yeah, I gotta
Oh,
send you,
yeah, we'll
I
go back
gotta
and
send you
fix
the
it.
one to TA.
You have it?
No, because now I have another issue on 16. So that's why I gotta discuss it before I can send the one with the 500. That's why I don't have it for you today, but yes, the 500 will be in the one that gets sent to you to TA.
I think Nick's going with that is changing the amount on, for this year, that was the whole intent. was 425 last year, and then move it to the 500 this fiscal year. So, October 1. So, yes, we understand that's like the T8 and everything. We understand you have more work to do on that one, but can we just make it the 500 as an MOU and get the process going as it was intended to be? And just continue that through the contract. And then if you ain't gotta change anything, indeed, we just continue that.
Guys, I got a
We,
meeting at 11.
we can discuss that much on them.
Okay.
All right, out of classification pay, I want to get the clarification to make sure I understand so that I can have it drafted appropriately. Day 1 through 14 is $50 per each shift. At day 15, they would get brought up to the new rate at day 15.
Correct, yes.
Got it.
And then we clarified the 9-hour versus 24-hour, right?
Don't sign this, just read this.
Okay.
Kristen just drafted that while she was listening. If that's correct, I'll have her finalized for the MOU so we can at least get that to the board. So don't sign that one because I'll have to get you a
Oh,
final
sorry.
copy. I just make sure.
I'm in a sign mode.
Is that the way
Yeah,
that
that
you're
is-
looking
that's
for?
what
All
we're
right,
trying
I'll
to
get her to finalize that so we can
Sorry.
get that sent over and we can,
You want this one back?
I wrote
Yes.
draft on it.
Okay.
And yes, the intent for Article 20 was to cover the 9 hours as well.
Okay, so if you get.
For 519,
Yes.
yes.
And is there any intentions of keeping day crews or doing additional day crews, or are we gonna just try to move to a 24-hour thing?
I can tell you from a management aspect, it's very difficult to keep 9-hour day crews. It's harder to fill them. It's less desirable, not that that's a problem. I mean, with management, I have to send you where I send people and I have to fulfill those positions. But I do understand even from our perspective that it's very difficult. So I would say that our intent is to probably stick with 24-hour shifts.
Yeah, so we look at maybe, and that provides better coverage if we're gonna keep them up there, that would be great
I don't think
for.
we have any intention of doing any more 9-hour.
Yeah, I have no intention of doing any 9-hour shifts, and I couldn't speak right now whether I'm gonna give, or I'm gonna be allowed to move 519 to a
Sure,
24-hour shift.
Transition, yeah.
Would, definitely be helpful for up there. Okay, and then, Article 19, did y'all discuss that, if we could make that effect, MOU and effective October 1? Because like I said, we're losing half our holidays this year based upon this.
As of right now, the answer was no.
So it's,
I am trying to get your uniform one that does that.
So, is it the no backdate to October 1, or is it no, we're not gonna be able to do this till next fiscal year anyway?
It's a funding issue, yes, and then just trying to see where we land on everything at the end of the day, because we're gonna have to do all of the math, if you will, for what we've agreed upon, the math for what is still open,
all right,
and see where those conversations take us.
so, So we agree to table that one for now and see where we land on how the map and everything comes out. If we can do it. Or we can sign it and then just
We
do an
can-
MOU to backdate it.
We can TA it if you guys want to, as it is, and then it will be part of the CBA when we get the whole thing finalized. Because we have agreement upon completion of a CBA. What we do not have agreement to is to backdate it or to get an MOU right now.
It's gonna be more math though at the end, I feel.
All right. So we originally asked for 24. We were amenable to saying if you can make this happen right now at the 20, would be appetite in going back to the 24.
I mean, we would
TA
have
at
to,
24.
again, we would have to, when it's all collective, come back and figure out the math.
You
'cause
say
that's
that,
gonna-
you say that, but the reality is it's not like you guys are sitting on a portion of money that you know exists, additional revenue to factor in what can be
We
discussed as far
know,
as
we know
wages
we
and stuff
have
like
the
that.
funding,
You're going,
we know we have the funding for the 20 hours and the out-of-class pay. We confirmed we have the funding for the 20 hours and the out-of-class pay.
So there shouldn't be an
But
issue.
that
well,
would
if
be
that's the case, then why can you do an MOU today
Right.
saying that it
Because
put into an effect
I
now?
did not have the support for that.
What would you have support for then?
An
When you say the
MOU
funding is there,
I have an MOU for a TA on what was passed across the
You have an
Let-
MOU.
let's say-
agreement, I'm sorry, for a TA for what was passed across the table. If we're not gonna sign that as a TA, then I have to go back and discuss it.
So let's say hypothetically, we TA everything, and we, you know what, we're gonna pull the pay proposal back, because that's a pipe dream or whatever, and we go to ratification, we end up ratifying the contract January 15th, 30th, February, whatever, let's, upon ratification, that goes into effect, right?
Right.
You have approval for that.
Yes.
That's what I was asking. Where's your cutoff date? What do you have funding for? Because I hear you saying, I can't do an MOU to put this in place today, or I certainly can't backdate it to October 1. That means you've calculated a gap in what this costs. So what's that cutoff? Or did you intend for this to not really go into effect until next fiscal year? And if that's the case, then yeah, take it back to 24 where it should be anyway, and you adjust the proposed budget going into next fiscal year.
Right.
That's why I said we have to go back and discuss it, because what was approved was the 2-hour calculation. So, at the table today, I do not think we are opposed to that. The calculation that was provided to budget was at 20 hours. That is what budget approved. We will have to go back and have further discussions.
Okay, so we can
So
agree
we
to
did
table
a
it, look at the 24.
calculation, we got math that said that would cost X amount of dollars. That math was approved. So
But there's
what
no
I
appetite for the
basically-
MOU,
What
so-
I said, yeah, no appetite for the MOU. What I said is, we are not inherently opposed to the, right here, at this table, are not inherently opposed to the 24. But what got approved was that, and then it was, you know, discussion, what is more important, this or that? Well, there's no way that we can fund $1.1 million increase in wages, but we've got about the $150,000 that was gonna cost. So, that's a huge difference in funding, right? So,
That's fine, as long as, I mean, we're ready to table it and look at, you know, there's no appetite for MOU, but okay, let's look back to that 24 then.
Okay.
Because like I said, we were amenable to signing it if we can do it as an MOU at 20. And that leaves 12. So I apologize on the collaboration on the costing of it, and maybe it's a misinterpretation or misunderstanding in that communication as far as how it's supposed to be implemented. But,
yeah, so
Yeah.
to bring everybody to that starting wage that you have for the table, and the starting wage was about $3 million. That did not include any years of service. So as far as, you know, the county not being able to support 1.1 million, which you guys brought previously, obviously we're gonna have a lot of discussion about where we need to land.
Understand.
And, those of us at this table cannot have that discussion.
correct, and we gotta find the money regardless. Whether it's 1.1, 3 million, 4 million, whatever it is, we gotta find the money. And then we also gotta be budgeting appropriately in the future. This is something we've been talking about for 10 plus years. And we're sitting over here communicating this, hey, we're gonna have a problem with the funding. Hey, we're gonna have a problem with this. Hey, our pay rates suck. Hey, all of this goes on. but it just keeps getting kicked down the road. When are we gonna take a definitive stance? Yes, it's a lot of money right now, but again, because it's been kicked down the road for 10 plus years. This is essentially correcting all of those and correcting a lot of the problems that we have with recruitment, retention. You know, with 5 years guys making, you know, within percent or within dollars of the brand new guy walking in the door, that's absurd. And we have all the intangibles a department wants. We need the tangible now. We get that, nobody's gonna be able to touch us in the panhandle, hell, I would say into the middle of the state. And that's where I believe Chief wants to get to. He wants to get to that premier department. We are. We're the biggest thing this side of Tallahassee. I guarantee you give us 3 to 5 years with the support, we're gonna be the largest department besides Jacksonville in the whole panhandle. So, you know, we gotta get that support somehow, some way, whether it's, hey, do we have the reserves to float it until we can fix the MSBU or our funding mechanism? Or is it, hey, we can agree to do this because we're gonna fix the funding mechanism, but we can't do it until this date? We've gotta get that commitment and move the ball forward. We can't keep sitting here stagnant. Like, you're coming up on 2 years of that first academy, you know, the cadet class we put on. Those guys are running out on their contract. Do not think they're not looking elsewhere. I've already provided you the numbers. The numbers we gave in that chart were based upon the Tri-County area, just within a 45-minute drive of here. So it's not an unheard of number, and these departments are moving to those numbers. So we've got to think about that and move the ball forward. I understand it's not you guys, but that's what's got to be communicated above to the guys, the people that can make those decisions. So that's what I'm asking here is, do they have those numbers? No, but at least give it an effort to get there, right? You come back with something, as long as it's reasonable, we're not gonna be unreasonable about it, right? We're not saying this or not, but we want a reasonable effort to get to that number.
Do you have any idea what this upcoming fiscal year, what the cost will be for the minimum wage increase?
The cost for the minimum wage increase, I have not calculated that, no.
We're at the state mandated minimum wage, right?
Will it be 14?
Ma'am?
It will be
Next
14.
fiscal year will be 14.
So you already know that there's no intention to try to go with market value, we're just gonna follow the state mandated minimum wage.
It's gonna have to be about an 8% raise on the starting.
I'm still having those discussions.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean you
My opinion
personally, I mean,
does not, my opinion does not matter.
what I'm saying, it's, so far you,
But it does, when you're having those conversations downtown, your opinion does matter and how it's presented, and that's what we're asking. Is like, yeah, hey, I agree with this and we need to do something with it. This is what we can do or what we can do, so versus, hey, this is what they're asking for, those
My
conversations.
job is to discuss market value. My job is to have discussions on where we're at, where we should be. My job is not to find the funding.
I understand, but what I'm saying, your opinion does matter in those conversations. When you say your opinion doesn't matter, it does when you're having those, our market value. What is our market value? Like, we've given to you clearly what it is. So your opinion of that, well, I don't think they're worth that. I think they're worth this. Okay, well, again, that's your opinion. So it does matter in those conversations.
what I was curious about that projection, whatever that is, the minimum movement. Would that include a shift in the entire scale or just the shift in
If
the
it's
starting?
applied like it has been in the past, no. Again, opinion,
Sure.
you know, but if it's applied like it has been in the past, no.
In those discussions, so I understand you have those at the administrative level, staff level.
Because Janice, how many discussions we have weekly?
Sure. Well, I guess where I'm going with this, we know that ultimately the package conversation goes to the top. Well, the top is different than what it was just a couple months ago. So those conversations and that work and that preparation, has that been done? I know it's kind of early, but has that been done with the new top floor, not the old top floor?
I can say I had personal conversations with three of our incoming commissioners.
I appreciate that. I think that's important. It's easy to say, hey, look, guys, this is where stuff has been. This is what I've been told. Well, if the last time you had that conversation, or you did that work was a few months ago, 6 months ago, whatever it was, of course that attitude may be very different at that point in time. They were getting ready to write a $5 million check a few months ago. Nobody was in a good mood anywhere. So those things hopefully have changed. That's why I asked. Do you guys support the adoption of a pay scale, or at least what's been proposed and presented in that manner?
If I'm being honest, I don't support this.
Is it,
Because
what
it's
aspect of that?
way too much.
So-
If we're talking $3 million right off the bat.
I didn't ask
it's
money,
just-
I asked a
right.
pay scale. Do you support a scale that's structured in that manner in terms of the steps proposed and the outline of how it's?
We gave you this scale. As far as seniority proposals, those are not something that I can discuss unless other people are willing to discuss them.
So you don't support the structure of that scale? Or
I'm
you
not
don't support the
saying-
dollar amount?
I don't support the dollar amount.
Okay,
because
well,
it's
again, it
very,
goes back to
very
your
high.
opinion in those.
And that is my opinion.
And that's, but based on market value in our area, those numbers are appropriate. That's only a 25% over 10 years, which is not unheard of.
Can I ask what about this scale?
Our market
Structure.
value came back a little different.
I'm not talking about numbers, Nikki, I'm talking about the actual structure of the scale.
You talking about the 10 years, the
The
seniority?
10 years, the steps, yeah.
Are we talking?
Plug in whatever
about- are we
numbers you
talking
feel
about
comfortable with.
this,
I'm
or
saying,
are we
do
talking
you-
about this?
No,
Just the whole thing.
The fact that it was broken down into what we can do, the fact that you can see what
I would support this countywide, but
Yes.
I can't,
That's
because
what
we
they're-
can't afford it.
That's what I'm,
And
again, you're thinking in fiscal, you're thinking in terms of numbers. Why couldn't you afford it countywide? I'm not talking about what those numbers that are there, I'm saying it's.
I did a projection to bring, let's just say longevity, to bring longevity back countywide, it was like $10 million.
Okay, well, we're not here to negotiate for all county employees, obviously, and it's not my fault, your fault, or anybody on that side of the table's fault that somebody decided to get rid of longevity years ago. They did what they had to do, fine, whatever it is, what it is. What I'm asking is, we're trying to build something here. We've been after trying to adopt and solidify a wage scale, because that's a recruitment and retention tool for the department.
And the county had one just a couple of years
They
ago.
did,
But
and-
removed this without telling us to a quartile system. That's the other aggravating part about it. We went to something like that. We didn't quite agree with it because there was no progression through it, but we said, okay, let's do that.
You
and
talking
then we
about
could
the
work on it.
steps?
Yeah, the
Oh,
steps.
that was because they wanted to get the 3%.
And then 2% steps indefinitely, but there was no progression through it unless there was a vote by the county board. So, but we were like, okay, we can adopt this, get the scale in place, but now let's work on a way to progress through it.
We would, yeah, in total, when he's saying earlier that your opinion does matter, this is why it matters. If you can see the value in that scale, because that's, everybody does business a little differently, right? But that structure is a combination, it follows market as it relates to our field. Maybe not with HR, maybe not with facilities or whatever, but that follows suit with our field, our market. So if you disagree with that, the fundamental structure of it, let alone the numbers, but just the fundamental structure, you think the progression is too rapid, this few of steps requires the percentages to be greater, we can't do this, whatever that is, that's valuable feedback in trying to understand how do we land on something that's meaningful. Because if you don't believe in it, we certainly can't trust you to go sell it, type of thing, right? And we all work together in trying to
Well,
sell
I
these
think the
things.
question that always comes up, regardless of if we agree with anything that looks like this, is how much does it cost?
I understand, but saying that.
So you
So
can say,
that's
we
the
agree
question
with the
that's asked
structure.
of me. How
Right,
much
but-
does it cost?
But you can say, I agree with the structure of this. What can we afford?
Okay, so I'll give you my opinion. I agree with the way that it's laid out. Again, I want to emphasize, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about the figures that are on a piece of paper. I'm talking about the overall plan. Segregating it from firefighter, EMT, firefighter, paramedic. so on and so forth throughout the ranks. I like the fact that it's scaled out over a period of time so that people that are wanting to come in can say, okay, look, I'm making X amount now, and in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now, this is what I should be expected to make. I like that up front. That's my honest opinion. That's without the numbers on it. So if you're looking for, do you like the fact that of the plan, not the numbers that we put out? I personally do. What those numbers are that get associated with that plan, that's where I'm out. I don't get a chance to agree or disagree with
Well,
that.
that's because you're 10 million out of GR. And,
Right.
you know, we don't have that corrected yet either. So, and that's part of the issue, is you can't even budget appropriately because you gotta go Mother May I everything. So, I mean, that's another conversation to have is,
Sure.
when are we gonna be funded appropriately to continue business the way we need to? Because we've rapidly grown as a county and our services have not kept up, or we've tried to keep up, but our funding has not. And it's, again, nobody on that side of the table, it's just, we gotta fix the overall system.
Right.
But I
Because it
think
is a
that's a good
systemic
point,
problem.
and that's the conversation that needs to happen, not here, but is, what are we willing to fund? Are we willing to fund this?
Mhm.
Are we willing to fund some form of this? What are we willing to fund? And that's not something we can answer.
I understand, but if you, hey, you can communicate, hey, I agree with this structure, but what can we afford? Okay, then how can we make it fit this? And then bring it back to it, and that's the feedback we're looking for. Okay, hey, yeah, the structure looks great, the numbers we gotta work on. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We
So
hear you.
That's what I'm conveying to you is, I like the way that it's set up. Where the figures lie is within somebody else's.
Did the MOU, did we get the draft to sign on that one?
No.
No, you didn't email that over, or?
What I
The-
yeah, I'm sorry, I'll email it. Yeah, we should get
Okay,
it
so you'll email
finalized.
me the ones that you need me to sign,
Yeah.
and then we've got just.
So I will email you the finalized MOU. I'll email you Article 8.
Okay.
Hopefully he can have a discussion today on Article 10, and we may be able to include that as well. I'll email you Article 13, possibly 16 by the end of this week. And I'll email you Article 20.
And usually it's 12 and 19.
12 and 19, yes.
Okay, and obviously ones that deal with money. So,
Where do we go from here on the wage discussion? As far as that's been passed across the table to you guys? Where do you see this going?
What I typically
Obviously-
do is I cost this out, which I would have to cost the whole thing out, and then I provide that to the powers that be, and
see where the
I
sport
leave
lies
it with
there.
them, yes.
Okay, so,
Have y'all been having, in the past, you hold executive sessions to allow for staff or administrator, attorney, whatever the circumstance were, to discuss this type of stuff with the board as a collective? And seen even in recent, I believe, I don't speak out loud, I feel like fairly recently, there's been executive sessions regarding bargaining sessions or follow-ups or stuff like that, and maybe I just misread it.
I don't think we've had any recently.
Have there been any at all?
Not that I know
With the
of.
change in administration, or say administration, with the change on the board, clearly there's some things that they desire to change. We just saw a return of the committee of the whole, right? So, do you foresee any of that changing as well, as far as,
I can't answer that.
Discuss that
The
stuff.
simple discussion that I had with each incoming commissioner was, here's all our positions, here's where we're at, here's our recommendations. That's what my job is, and then somebody else's job is the
you
funding.
know, I wish Wes was still here to ask that too.
Yeah, he had an 11 o'clock that he had to get to.
We can all
Yeah.
agree though, there is a problem with the fire department with it, when it comes to funding, correct? You can agree with that? Yeah.
I don't think he desires to pull out of where it's getting the funding right now. Yeah, we can agree upon that.
any idea for a date for
I mean, it's gonna take me a couple days to cost this out completely, because there's a lot of components that you guys tied in here. So I'd like to do that,
Sure.
cost that out fully, and then, try to get those numbers up the chain. So let's see if I can,
Maybe January, but chance.
I hate to
let's
set a
see.
date and I have no discussion for you. I would rather at least try to have some discussions on my end.
Yeah.
All right, just email me if you can give us a date, whenever you can.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Rob, thank you.
Oh, for the record, I did request an MOU for the uniforms, so if I can get that and the other MOU, I'll email you that one as well, and then we can get those possibly on January 9th,
Okay.
before I turn this off.
Okay.
All right,